uh, bec- you can, because the reason why we are studying together them together is because they are like essentially integral part of things to prevent or get aware of our environment. Yes, you're absolutely right, because you can think this as a coin with two sides. So one can be the ecology, the other can be the environment. If you think it as such, because both are essential components. To better understand things around you, and then to save them as such, or to understand them better. Okay. Uh, so if you have so the way this thing we can have this is, so I can go over some of the topics that have been discussed in the class lectures, in the videos that you have seen in the course. Some of them I will go over it again, but some of them I can I will be elaborating a little bit more on that. So if you'd like me to, if you have any questions, or let me know in between, and then along with that I would like to keep this more like a discussion session, because that's a better way I feel to learn, if you are interacting it. So try to you know answer questions if you know something, if you have any idea. It's okay to be wrong. Okay. So what do you guys think of this word sustainable development? So what's the first one thing that comes to your mind? Okay, please go ahead. Someone raised their hand. You can unmute yourself and speak. Yeah, please. What is the first thing that gets into your when you hear the word sustainable development? So a lot of you have heard. Okay. Can anyone let me know what does that word means? Yes, Ganeshan, you can go ahead and answer. Okay, sure. Since none of you are answering, I will go ahead. It usually someone wrote in the chat box. It's usually meets the needs of present without compromising the ability of future generations. Yes, you're right. So it's a definite. You're defining that word. That's nice. So what does what you have defined is say is like basically you're trying to conserve a thing, especially here the nature, the environment, and then simultaneously it's not just conserving them. You are meeting the needs of yourself, and then without compromising, so that the future generations can also simultaneously use those things, and then they can sustain themselves in the future also. So development in a sustainable way. So if you define it, it can be development that meets the needs of present and future generations. That's what we are just discussing about. And then it indeed contains two key concepts within it. The first one being the concepts of needs. Okay, in particular, the essential needs of the world's poor, to which overriding priority should be given. Here, the needs means it's not just needs of everyone, so the needs of everyone varies, but the priority should be given to the needs of the world's poor, because the poor people may not be able to have the basic necessities. So that's what the needs here tends to imply. And then the idea of limitations imposed by the state of technology and social organization on the environment's ability to meet present and future needs. So uh, the limitations is something we as a society, and the technology is something that we are limiting ourselves, so that we can meet the needs of the present generations, and simultaneously the future generations also. And if you put it simply, you can think it of sustainable development is as a principle that we ourselves have made, that governs human developmental goals, because eventually we need development to make our life easier, or to travel easier, or something, just to ease our lifestyle a little bit. while simultaneously enabling natural systems to provide necessary natural resources and ecosystem services. So these developmental goals that we are trying to get should not come at the cost of natural systems. They should not be disturbed, and they should be able to provide the necessary natural resources and ecosystem services, as we are essentially reliant on the resources and the services that are provided by nature. So these developmental goals, or the sustainable development, can have, three different components, where the intersection is where the sustainability comes with. So the intersection of society, intersection of, economic development, and the intersection of environment. The way the intersection happens, that's where the sustainability comes. So you are not compromising on any of these. If you're compromising on society, you'll be just focusing on this. If you're compromising on environment, just working for the benefits of economic and society, you are focusing on here. But for sustainability to be there, you have not to compromise each and every facet of this. You have to give a equal priority for each and every facets of this. Okay. So yeah. So what are the different capacities that are necessary for sustainable development? So the first thing can be, the it there can be the capacity to link knowledge with action. What we had generated and then what we can implement, or and the capacity to govern cooperatively, because the ecology, environment, society, and economics, these are very different areas. If you think in terms of the type of people who are responsible for different things in different places, it may not be feasible. It may not be, uh, it might be difficult. So there's a necessary for the capacity to govern cooperatively. There is need of cooperation between different multiple entities or stakeholders here. Stakeholders who are responsible for societal growth, the economic growth, and then environmental, uh, saving of the environment. They had to come and work together, and then measure capacity to measure progress. So if you thought you will, let's develop sustainably, that's good. But the thing is, how good are you progressing towards the, goals that you set for yourself? You need to measure them, and there is a capacity to promote equity. So everyone should be given equal preference, and then there's the importance for you to promote equity and capacity to adapt to shocks, because not every time you might be able to do whatever you intend to, because there's something event that might just come out of the blue. Like for instance, you're trying to, save environment, but a year came because there was this wildfire that happened. You might not be able to, do anything. Or if you think in terms of poverty, if you're trying to have built up a program to eradicate poverty in some areas, but like all have experienced, COVID came where everything was locked out. So it came as a shock. So some of the programs were set back. So there should be capacity to, build up from there again, to adapt, and then the capacity to transform developmental pathways. So whatever the developmental pathways we have as of now, to be much more sustainable, you should be able to transform them, so that it can encompass other areas also. So it's essentially is a mixture of all of these individual things. When they when they can work together, or can be when they come together, then only the sustainable development is some can be achieved. Okay. So with this idea of, to achieve sustainable development, the United Nations uh, came up with this idea of, having some sustainable developmental goals for all the countries across the world, so that, everyone comes together, uh, and then tries to achieve these goals together, so that, we can have sustainable development, not just for a single country, but as humans together. So there are 17 goals. Okay. uh, is it a little bit clear now? So I hope it is little clear now. Is it right? Or yes, sure. Thanks. uh, so there are around 17 sustainable goals which have been drafted by people from different areas of expertise of the society, the economic and environmental environment that we had just discussed earlier. So of them, first one is no poverty. So this is one of the major concern as humans, because a lot of people are suffering from poverty across the world, and there is a need for zero hunger, and then good health and well-being of the people, quality education to all, gender equality, clean water and sanitization, affordable and clean energy. These are all something that we might not think of all the time, because at least we might have heard of uh, poverty, hunger, and gender inequality. But clean water and sanitization is something that is lacking in most of the rural areas of the country, and then other regions or other parts of the world also. And even affordable and clean energy, it's not accessible in remote locations. So these are all something that are are the basic necessities, at least in the way in the current world, that one should be able to achieve as a society, so that everyone should be able to have these things for basic living. And next comes uh, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, infrastructure, reduce inequalities. Not only so here, earlier we spoke about gender. Here it can be about religion, or it can be about uh, your place, where are you from, region, or anything. So reduce inequalities, sustainable cities and communities. So your cities, the places are sustainable themselves, and reduce responsible consumption and production of resources. And climate action, life below water, life on land. So these four can be think of in terms of the growth or economic concerns. And climate action, life below water, and life on land are something that are environmental related, where you are trying to conserve something, or try to prevent some changes which will affect everyone. And peace, justice, and strong institutions, and partnering for the goals, partnering among all the nations, or partnering among different stakeholders. So these are 17 goals that has been set up. And then, so what does each goal have? Like for instance, let's look at the one, that says life on land. So each of these goal has specific needs, or sub goals, based on different things, like why the goals were necessary. Let's, for example, life on land. Why do we need to save life on land? Especially their main three drivers that has been responsible for affecting the life on land. Especially first one being forest loss, because we all know that forest fragmentation, forest loss has been happening globally, not only in India. As you might have heard of uh, cutting down of forests, especially in Brazil, for grazing pastures. So because of that, a lot of other things are happening. And then there is this land degradation that is happening. So whatever the lands that were fertile, or the forests were being converted to other land use types like agriculture. So there is this escalation is happening. And then the other thing that we all might have heard of is species extinctions. The species are going extinct, and then the two that is happening at a rapid rate. It's not like species has not gone extinct in the past, but because of human activities, the species are dying out and getting wiped off the face of earth, like at crazy speed. So what does these things has to do with us, or at least sustainable development? Because these things are getting escalated, these pose severe threats to people and the planet. You can think of it like, why is a species, if a species of insect get extinct, what it has to do with me and how I live? You might think of it, because you might uh, because the role it does might not be significant, but together they can have a significant impact. Let's say, for example, there is a species of bee, which is really important because it pollinates some crop that we get our food from. So if the bee goes extinct, we don't have that crop at all, unless until we figure out some other way to artificially get the pollination done. Or if there is a species of ladybird beetle which eats aphids, which affects the crops, so that it saves the crops from pests. So if that beetle goes extinct, the crops produce will be affected, so does the food security of the people gets affected. Because, and each and every of these are connected to us in it in some way or other. So there is a need for getting that goal, reaching that goal of to conserve or life on land, or to at least reduce these things. Okay. uh, so some of these goals that we had discussed earlier, it can be broadly categorized into two three subcategories, like we are discussing earlier: the societal, uh, economical, and environment or biosphere related, especially the ones that were related to humans and poverty, hunger, health, education, equality, peace. These are all can be thought in terms of societal, where economical, like the economic growth, infrastructural growth, inequalities, reduced inequalities, and then responsible consumption and production. These are all related to the gain of of people. So they can think, they can be thought in terms of economical. And then life below water, life on land, action, and clean water and sanitization. These are some things that are related to the environment that we live in, and so they can be thought of as environment related. And all of together, they can. It's necessary for us to partnership for. There is necessary for us to achieve the 17th goal, to do this or achieve the remaining 16 goals together. Okay. Uh, Uh, I hope it was clear till here. And right. So, how can we control poverty by sustainable development? So, it's an interesting question, because uh, if you think in terms of poverty, so uh, there can be, if you can, you have to think of why there is poverty in a place. Okay. Then you'd be able to understand there can be a number of reasons, but the reasons might differ from place to place. Let's say, for example, uh, if you take a place as such as, just thinking which example might be better. Okay. If you think about some of the slum areas that you might have heard of or seen. Okay. Some of those people are in poverty, or in dire poverty situation, because they can't afford a proper house for themselves, and sometimes not even enough meals. Okay. Because they are not able to, you know because of the way things are around that area, or the way that the development has taken place, especially around that area. And much of these people are migrants from different places, because they have come for looking for job or work. So what tends to happen sometimes is, they stay in in these areas, because there is no development in terms of monetary benefits of staying back at the place where they are originated from. So there can be different drivers, so you have to address those drivers. And being sustainable, or being you if you're trying to include all of these concerns together, there is a high chance of of you being able to reduce that thing. Okay. uh, if you think it from environment perspective, it might be different, but if you think it from societal perspective, the way we can control poverty differs. Hope Okay. Hope you could clear it a little bit. And it was okay. Yeah. if somebody wants to talk about, why should we need climate action currently, does anybody wants to think or talk about why should we need climate action or any of these goals? If you are okay, if you all want to talk about any of these goals, or like why some of the goals you might think might not be really necessary to be there, but it's still there. And yeah, in the meantime, I just want to point out that most of these goals are interconnected to each other in somehow. So if you try to achieve one sort of the goal, you're eventually contributing to the achieving of another goal simultaneously. Let's say, for example, you're trying to try to save life on land, you're simultaneously trying to address climate action also. If you're trying to trying to address no poverty, you are simultaneously addressing zero hunger also. And simultaneously with reduction of poverty, people can be able to sometimes they can be able to afford education, or by supporting education they can go out of more out of poverty. So there are all these interconnected things where you can achieve a goal, multiple goals simultaneously by a single activity. Okay, so you can simultaneously you can simultaneously think these goals as each are related to each other in these terms also: the biosphere related goals, the society related goals, and the economic related goals, ultimately paving the way for partnership for the goals. Okay, uh, I'll try to speak a little louder. So we have also as of now we are discussing uh, there are different goals that we need to achieve. So how do we know that whether we have achieved, or how far are we from achieving those goals that we have set for ourselves? So for that we need some sort of indicators that say you have reached 10% of the whatever the goal you have fixed out for, or you have reached the goal, or you are nowhere there. Okay, so you need some statistical values that collectively measure the capacity to meet present and future needs. So, what's the goal that you have achieved as of now, and what's still more to left? And then these things indicators also can be used to provide information for policy and the general public, so that they can be aware of what is happening. It's not just something has been written and then that's not the end of it. So if there is the way of measuring progress, if people see the progress, they might be aware of it, and then they might also be able to contribute to that progress. So similarly, these sustainable development goals, every year uh, UN generates a report for each of the 17 goals. What's the how how many goals are there on track, target, how many have reached a progress, some what all are you know are not moving ahead. So it is this report is generated every year, so you know how things are going each year. So the latest report that was published in 2023, if you are interested, you can access the whole report at this web page. So each goal has some targets like 15. It may vary from 2 to some n number of targets. So out of that, around 140 targets for all the 17 goals we have, uh, data shows that about half of these targets are moderately or severely off track. So if you can see, most of them are yellows and then reds. So only those are that are in greens are are on track, or basically on concourse, that this goal is happening as laid by the plan. And over 30% have either seen no movement or regress below 2015 baseline. And some of them have actually deteriorated, you know, as compared to 2015 baseline. What was the earlier baseline? They have fallen down much more. Like, for instance, it can be climate change active. you know response, how countries are doing, how, yeah, or the poverty measurement, yeah, how they are addressing poverty, or any on any of those goals, they might have just gone down. So which is, it's a little bad situation, but there is still hope because most of them, some of them are being met. And so for India, so what's the trend? So for each of the 17, the ones that are in green are on track. Orange, they are improving little bit, okayish. Yellow, orange are stagnant, they are not changing much, and the ones that are red, they are decreasing. So so India is doing little better in terms of reducing poverty, but zero hunger, climate action, peace and justice, sustainable cities and communities, these are something that has stagnated, are because they are not changed for a longer time. Which, some of these aspects that you might be aware from, from the recent developments that has been there in the news, like climate action, how things are being, uh, s- things are not being addressed, or how some of the cities are not really sustainable in terms, or some peace and justice related activities also. However, uh, life below water, especially the conservation of life below water, is little better, but on land it has decreased. Quality of education has slightly increased, so is the health and well-being and clean water, and a little bit of gender equality and economic growth. But there is still need for development of inequalities. So this is generated every year, so you are monitoring, so that we know where we are doing better and then where we need to focus. So these are the, uh, are the need for having developmental indicators for each and every goal. So the indicator for each goal might be different because there are different targets for each goal. So if you take this example of life on land, so if you remember, we were discussing three things: the prerequisite for why we should conserve life on land, because there is this forest loss, there is degradation, and there is extinction risk. There are three
Sorry to
things.
disturb you,
So
sir, but can I ask a question?
sure, sure.
So, beside the awareness program, how India government took care of all these goals?
Uh, all these goals. Okay. That
Because
thing I'm
only
not
two
really
of them
aware
are
of.
on the track,
Yes.
and they are the red much. मतलब, red spots are more.
Yeah,
If
there are
we
a
take
lot
a
of
look,
red spots which are
S-
decreasing, or they had to be improved. So can you just repeat your question again?
yeah, sure, sir. So I was asking how Indian government took care of these goals. Like what measures? Because I don't notice much around me, and most of the time I found a lot of people complaining, like due to poverty, education, and all of this. I don't think government is taking care of these goals in a serious mode.
Uh, I might have to agree with you in that aspect because I myself have not seen some of those aspects. But I think some of those programs which we might not be aware of have been running for long ages. Like if you remember, uh, zero hunger and no poverty schemes, like BPL cards that are given, so that monthly ration is given. It's some measure of reducing, trying to reduce zero hunger. And if you remember, if you are from, at least I'm from Andhra, so we had uh, this scheme for especially health related. The name changes, but the thing is basically the government has uh, provides you with healthcare benefits for certain amounts. And so these have been, it's not like the government just started out of the blue some of those activities. Some, there for some goals they might have, but these have been running for ages in the country. They're just clubbed up into those categories and were being assessed. So that's why I feel like we don't see much. Like if you think of quality education, you might have seen posters about uh, I'm not sure what was it. It was like it was about girl education, if I'm not wrong. You
Yes,
might have
sir.
seen posters about it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, sir. Actually, I was saying that it all these programs are running from ages, but
yeah.
still
Some of them are running from ages.
but the impact is like so less.
Yeah.
So like it's going to like on and on and on. There's no solution or no end.
uh, I think for the solution to be happened, I think it has to come from, it has to change from ourselves also a little bit, mindset of how we think these things should
Yes,
be
sir. I
addressed.
agree.
Because some of these, yeah, some of these problems are not, it's not like you can brush off, this is not my problem, because obviously if you think it as a society together, they're also humans, so you have to contribute, we have to contribute. That's one thing. The other thing is that is like the ones that who are responsible for implementing these programs should be doing them, proactively. So if there's a lapse in any of these two things, because these are different stakeholders, right? We can call different pa- people involved different stakeholders. So if there is a, not enough thing that is happening between the stakeholders, or any of the stakeholders doesn't do their job properly, then you can't do anything out of it. So I think that might be the reason. I'm just speculating, that might be the reason we are not able to, achieve most of these goals. But yeah, there are few examples where we have achieved some of the goals, like especially if you think in terms of health, like polio. We might have, there are very few, I think, cases that might be still there.
Yes,
But
sir.
we have,
Recently, WHO said that India is free from the polio.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, WHO
that is
declared that.
actually because we our healthcare system, could with could eradicate it because of the involvement of multiple stakeholders. So there is a little bit progress in some things, but some things are, always there that are not meeting up to the mark.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome. So that's why these having these indicators are really necessary. So so if they are made public to us, we can start questioning the government or the people who are responsible for implementing this, like what's happening with this, why they are not being, doing going on as per the progress. So, okay, so this is a broad trend for each of these uh, target. So if you look at life on land, so I was saying the major things that we are talking about was the proportion, the forest area, forest loss, degraded land, and species extinction. So if you look at it, the life on land trend is not great. Okay, the global level, from this image, it's 15, right, or 14? Just a minute, I'm sorry. Life on land is 15, goal 15. So if you look at 15 here, we have some of the targets that are met, some are okayish, and some are, are not moving at all, and we don't have data for some of those targets. So what's happening with major of them? So if you look here, the green are the areas with respect to forest loss. This plot represents the forest loss. The ones that are in red, there's a relatively higher amount of forest loss. The one that is in green, there is a there is relatively better, improvement in terms of forest area. So if you see Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, there is a forest loss. But India shows, there is an increase in forest cover, but this forest cover increase can be, majorly attributed to plantations, but not the true forest cover. So which, there's still some lackings that is there, that's not being considered. But overall, this goal, we are not being able to achieve that goal of forest restoration, or neither we are able to achieve the degraded land, or we are not able to reduce the amount of land that is getting degraded. If you look here, uh, the one that is in green highlights the value proportion of degraded land for the year 2019 to what it was in 2015. If you look at different regions, uh, if you look at southern Asia, which is where India comes in, so the degradation value proportion of land was earlier, it was 4.5, it increased to 10.4. So nowhere across the world it has reduced. You know, overall it has, increased. So we are not anywhere near, achieving this goal also. And if you look at the third goal, which is red list index, so how to interpret this plot was, you all of you might have heard of this IUCN red list, right? So another metric that red list index is. It takes the data from IUCN red list and then tries to put up. So basically, the closer you are to one, so the more number of species that are not that threatened. The closer you are to zero, or the lesser your value, the more of the species are are higher at risk. So if you see here, it's all decreasing. So most of the species that are increasing in terms of the risks of extinction is increasing, but nowhere decreasing across the years. So there are lot of species that are getting added to the list, and then the extinction risks are getting higher for a lot of species. So if you look in the same thing in map, just look at India. So what does it say? It's an index between 0 and 1. A value of one indicates there is no current extinction risk to any of the species that are included in the study. A value of 0 would mean that all included species are extinct. So zero point 0.4 means most of the species you can think as at least zero point 0.4, 0.5, somewhere 5 to 6, somewhere around will be the value for India. So most of the species that are included in the assessment are are at the risk of extinction. So which is not a really ideal thing. That it's like we are nowhere near achieving that goal either. So we should work more for achieving at least this goal to conserve species. Okay, so that's why we need to assess those goals, just not have goals and then just forget them at that instance. So this map was made for just for the birds, for the birds. So whatever the species that were included, the extinction risks were higher here, and then extinction risks were relatively low in the northern regions. Most higher was around the equatorial regions and the African regions. So yeah, so that's all what I want to cover about, talk about sustainable developmental goals. If you have anything you want me to address, so before moving ahead, I can stop and go back if you have any clarifications of any sort, or if you want me to talk about something else with respect to these goals. Okay. uh, if there is nothing, I will go ahead and let's talk a little bit about dams. uh, Please, can why why do are dams good? What do you guys think? Are, yeah, sure. Someone raised a hand. Can you can please go ahead and ask if you have anything to ask. uh, does anyone? I think it was Meena Surendra. If do you have anything to ask? If so, please go ahead and ask. I can wait. Or if you don't want to talk, you can just type in the chat box so that I can read out and then discuss the question. So, what do you guys think of dams? Are they benefit? Are they we get a lot of benefits, or they have a lot of impacts, or
So
they just
dams are
balance both?
beneficial.
Sorry.
Dams are beneficial.
Okay. Uh, okay. Someone also pointed out it leads to a lot of habitat loss. So Obviously it's not just the benefits they have, uh, some, you know some bad things so they do. So if you have a look uh, at benefits or the impacts. So we all know the benefits. It can, if you just want to count what all the benefits they can provide, they can be, electricity related benefits. We get electricity, we get irrigation, we can have flood control, because especially in the hilly regions, especially if you think of the recent monsoon and the western disturbance related weather events that has happened in Himachal and Uttarakhand. So there is a lot of rain that has been, pouring for the past 2 months there, and all this water just comes downstream. Once it exits the hilly regions, it just comes into the plains. Most of those, if Bias River comes into the, I think, Bhakra Nangal Dam, if I'm not wrong. So all this water, if not, if there was no dam, it can just flood the plains, and then sometimes these dams also, try prevents those flooding. So they have those benefits also, and then yeah, they can have, some of the dams are used for entertainment purposes or tourism related activities, like the backwaters. You can have boat related tourism or fishing activities, because there are a lot of benefits also. It's not like they don't have any impacts. There are multitude of impacts, like you guys have pointed. There are ecological impacts, there are loss of biodiversity, there is habitat loss, the environment gets altered, the river that is actually flowing becomes a, huge lake, and then downstream the river is not flowing at all, so the environment of the, or the ecology of the river is altered. So there are societal impacts, like the cultural sites that are there, that are significant to some, you know either religion or specific people groups. They might be inundated, or they might have lost their cultural significance. If you talk in terms of tribal areas, they might have lost their ancestral homes, the society, all those cultural beginnings, roots, they might have lost. So because of dams. So along with that, there is social aspects of impacts. There can be, because this is what we hear mostly of, the displacement. People has to be relocated to other places because lot of water comes up, and then the area is gone, and then there is a loss of livelihoods that happen, or people had to start searching for new livelihoods. For instance, if you think of some village that used to, be in a place before the dam came up, and then those villages are mostly forest dwellers or sustain themselves from agriculture, and then collecting, other forest produces like honey or whatever other things. But now, if the dam has come up and the entire back waters upstream has been flooded, so they don't have the forest nor their homes, so they had to be moved to a new place, and then where they had to find, some other livelihoods, which might not be really easy to do. And these are something that we have heard a lot. We might have seen in depictions in some, movies also. So there are many other impacts which I might have missed, but yeah, there are a lot of them there. And if you think it of as a case study, you can think of, let's talk about Sardar Sarovar Dam. uh, can someone think of what has happened with respect to Sardar Sarovar Dam? If you have any idea, you can please go ahead before, I can say what I have heard of it, or the impacts especially of Sardar Sarovar Dam. Any ideas where it is located? At least it was there in the previous picture itself.
Really, but in 2014 there was some issue with the height of this dam. Like it was the displacement or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Uh, any hints on where this dam is, or which state this dam is in? That's a point that I will come to, which you have pointed. But any Okay, let me just go back. Read
Gujarat.
the caption. Yes, yeah, Shivani, you're right. It's in Gujarat on the Narmada River. Okay, so it's on the Narmada River in the Gujarat state. As you rightly pointed out, Kanak, that this dam is currently around 163 meters because its original proposed was somewhere around 80 meters. If I'm not wrong, it's below, well below 100. So the height has been subsequently every has been increased to somewhere around 163 meters, and then this is now the India's third highest concrete dam. Uh, and then the advantage of this dam, it provides drinking water to so and so villages, and then irrigation also, and it generates electricity also. So that's one of the major things the dams do. But if you think it in terms of impacts, everyone might have heard of Narmada Bachao Andolan, right? So there is this huge movement. So this dam was idealized in somewhere around 1950s or 1960s, and then it has been finished some in 27 in officially inaugurated in 2017 after these heights were subsequently raised. And all these years after this dam has been commissioned, till its completion, the Narmada Bachao Andolan has been going on. Especially this is Narmada Bachao Andolan is Save Narmada movement, especially to save or safeguard the livelihoods of the people that have been relocated, because uh, there has been claims that you know that the people who were relocated were not given enough uh, what it's called, enough compensation, or provided of enough resources so that they can go into a new different place and then start all over their life again, which is very difficult to do. But still, they even for them to bear that pain, they were not being compensated enough for. And then there are a lot of things that has happened with Narmada Bachao Andolan, but if you are interested, you can look up on it. But this is one of the impacts, and this is has been happening for a many number of years. So although this is highest, it provides so and so benefits, but still has a lot of impacts. If you think in terms of ecological impacts, the habitat loss that has happened, and then the change in river flow, it's everything. You can just add to the list. It just goes on and on. And especially, I think, I don't know, as you have spoken about the increase in height. So I'm not sure why the increase in height might have been asked every has been raised every time. But uh, the the older the dam gets, because of siltation, the height of the dam has to be consequently increased, to hold huge amount of water, and to use the gravity for for generating electricity and so on. But before the dam was finished itself, the height was has been continuously raised for this in this case. And you might have heard of this dam also, right? It's not constructed yet, it's proposed. uh, so this dam is proposed on a tributary of Brahmaputra called Dibang, in the lower Dibang valley of Arunachal Pradesh. So it if it's made, it will be 288 meters tall. Let's just have a look. Bhakra Nangal Dam, which is 226 meters, is the tallest in India, and then some 60 meters taller than that, and will be the tallest. Just imagine the amount of water it holds and the amount of electricity it produces, 3000 megawatts. So that's the expected capacity of the electricity that it can produce. But there has been a lot of movements that are been going on for to prevent the construction of this dam, because the local people or the tribal people that are staying in those areas, they are going to lose their lands. So, and they are fighting for it, because we don't need it as of now. We are not in need of this dam, so we don't want it to happen here. And there has been other way, there has been other reasons why India is building, because of uh, security related reasons, because because of our neighbors. It can be China, but it can be other countries, especially here China is the neighbor. So because of security related concerns also, uh, these dams are being built to ensure water security, because the Brahmaputra eventually flows into China and then comes back. And then China has been building a lot of dams on the section that of Brahmaputra that has been there in the country, or in their country. So it's just not the societal and benefits and or environmental impacts. It's just national interest, national security interests are also something that plays a huge role when it comes to development. Or you might have simultaneously heard of this border road linking project. And then there is this recent change in I think wildlife protection, some of the forest act, where you might not need permissions or environmental impact clearance to create you know roads near that are close to the international borders, because security is a major concern there. So they there we are trying to, we are giving much more to economic and societal benefits rather than environmental benefits. So there are a lot of things that influence the way things goes on. But yeah, so yeah, that's all with the dams and development I can I had to say about. But if you have anything, if you want to add anything, please go ahead and add, so that we can have a little small discussion here. And there was this recent report also, not report, but people were saying, experts were saying that this, because of this high number of dams in the Himalayan regions, the destruction or the number of landslides that has happened big post these rains, especially in Himachal and Uttarakhand, are because of these dams. They attributed much of this. So the impacts are not just related that they can be escalate to different regions also, because there is a lot of water inundation that has been happening. And if there's a lot of water that comes up, the soil is already stagnated, so it just craves up, and then landslides are much more frequent there. So that's one of the reasons that has been coming up for these. So yeah, the impacts may not be localized, they can have wide ranging impacts also. And so recognizing most of these things, so what has been happening was, most of these dams, at least in the United States, most of the dams are being decommissioned. They have been uh, s- uh, they have been breaking down, and then so that the river can restore its own natural course. And okay, and and the other reason for the removal of dams is something related to here, especially the species. Okay, can someone point out or say what is this structure that is present in front of this dam? So this dam is from United States. Can someone say what this structure is, or what's this role of the structure? So okay, in that case, I will go ahead and answer it. So these structures are called fish ladders. Okay, especially to help those species of fishes that are migratory in nature, because there are this group of species called salmons, SALMONS, that are predominantly present in North America. So what do these salmon do? So the life cycle goes on. They are born in the upstreams of major rivers, and then once they hatch, as they grow, they go out into the sea. They spend some time, 2 years, 3 years, depending on species to species, and they come to those grounds where they have born to breed. So they have to move upstream from the ocean, because they are ocean going fishes. So they had to come up all the way, and they spawn or breed and then die. So for them to come up, these dams are creating an obstruction. And then these species are really important for the environment there, because when they go in so huge numbers, they are source of food for many of those organisms. If you think, if you might have watched all these brown bays jumping into the water and catching the fishes, because they get those food before, especially the winter sets in, because that's important. And then once these animals take this food, the dead fish, into the forest, they take the nutrients from the oceans to the forests. So all these processes are being hampered by these dams. So what they came up with this idea is, because the species can jump little distances, so they started building these structures, ladders. They can be very different sizes and shapes, so the fishes can go. So how does this thing looks? This is on Columbia River, and then so flow from, so there is a continuous flow that happens on this ladder. As you can see from this photo, it has been going down. Okay, the water flows down, and because of this continuous flow, that attracts fishes into these pools. And then as they can jump smaller heights, they will jump where there is water, they will follow, and then over the dam they will go, and then start continue their cycle of upstream movement. Downstream movement is relatively easy because the floodgates are open, so they might just go. So that's how these fish ladders are working. But there are other ways of people having these guns. Not just guns, there are pressurized chambers where they put the fish, they collect the fish, catch the fish, they dump in the dam upstream, or they can, from the downstream itself, they can put it in a pressurized tube, so that the fish is just catapulted into the dam. So there are different ways people came up with to allow the species that are being affected by the construction of dams, especially these migratory fish. uh, have you guys heard of such structures in India? Or I, if you have looked at the picture of going back to Sardar Sarovar Dam, or any other dam that you have seen, do you see any such structures for fishes? Has anybody heard of fish ladders being used for dams in India? Uh, Anybody would like to answer, or have not heard of it? In case you are not heard of it, I'll let me just go ahead and try to help you with that. So, not heard. Okay. So the thing is, yeah, there are. As far as I have heard of it, so there is no such structures on any of the dams in India, because we are not. It's not like we are not concerned about species migrating. The reason is, there is no fish that has this large scale upstream movement in India. There are species that move locally, little bit upstream, like mahasir species, especially the golden mahasir. It has been known to migrate, but the way the scale at which the salmons migrate, at least no other species as of now is known from India that can show this long scale movement from the ocean to the headwaters. This long scale movement is not there. So it might not be it's not necessary in that aspect, but dams surely hamper the movement of you know fishes that move locally also, like golden mahseer, because golden mahseer is one such species that is found in Gangetic plains and then lower hilly regions, uh, and it moves upstream, and then if you have a dam there, so it can't move and breed. So yeah, fish ladders are really helpful. Hilsa fish, I'm not sure whether it's migratory or not, but even if it migrates, what the point I was trying to make is they will not migrating from ocean till the headwaters like the salmon fish do. Hilsa fish, if I'm not sure, if I'm not wrong, they might be migrating little bit into the brackish water and little bit inland, but not till the headwaters. Like if you think of what is headwaters, if you think of the river Ganga, okay, river Ganga in Sundarbans. River Ganga originates in Gaumukh, which is in Uttarakhand. Okay, so headwaters can be those regions where the river originates, or few kilometers below it. Hi, yeah. So the fish has to, if you think of this hilsa is a migrate, if you hypothetical example, it is a migrated fish, then it has to move from Sundarbans all the way through Ganga. It has to go through all these, uh, you know, Kanpur, Haridwar, and then all the way up till uh, at least where Bhagirathi and Alaknanda rivers meet, at least from where the Ganga starts. At least those areas are called headwaters. So if the fish is not moving this long, uh, this large scale movement is not being hampered. Hilsha, if I'm not wrong, it moves much more locally. It might just come a little bit inland. I might be wrong also. Yeah. So yeah, that's the fish ladder. So hope that was clear, Debarma. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Hope that was clear about the Hilsa fish. Because the large scale movement is not present in any of these species that are present in at least Indian subcontinent. Hope I answered your question. Yes. Okay. Thanks for the response. So yeah, that's all I have for today. If you have any other thing about dams or anything, you can go ahead and ask. And or other things that you would like me to discuss in the class. If you have any more specific things that you can ask, I can go ahead and discuss. And I can start. Yeah, next class I can discuss some of those things. Yeah.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, sure, sure, go ahead.
Um, like we see that it is very important to have like electricity, and it's a renewable source of energy that we can use this water again for that. On the other hand, it is
Yes.
having a lot of habitat loss. So, does these SDG are so detailed that they give some kind of alternatives to these kind of problems, or
uh,
is it the government or the particular country that has to do address these things or find alternatives?
Sorry, can you repeat the last part again, because I think there's some interruption of connection.
I mean, I'm first thing that I'm asking is there any other alternative which, uh, I mean, alternative to dams? Maybe more, maybe not economically that sound, but environmentally
Yeah.
more friendly. And the second part of my question is that do these SDGs in detail address and tell that there are other kind of options to these dams and these kind of developments, so that the countries can follow that.
Okay. I will let me go with the second question first. So I think there are set of guidelines that might be uh, put for achieving the targets together, because all these countries come together in United Nations to set these goals. So they might be for countries that are not at the stage, they might provide some guidelines. So these might be ways you can achieve these goals, because but I don't, and then it in the end it depends upon for the country to decide, right? Because it's your a property, because it's your responsibility to do whether you achieve the goal or you want to do it in a different way. It boils down to the what the country thinks of it as. But the major thing that's happening here, at least if you think of this also political things that goes around here. If you think with respect to climate change, right? Paris Agreement and stuff. If you might have heard of it, if you're not, don't worry about it. So what happened here was, so that there's this thing of cutting down carbon emissions, especially from coal powered or fossil fuel consumption. So the one of the arguments that was put by developing countries like India was, the Western countries that have already developed, they have already used you have already used your share and you have developed. Now you have those resources to uh, to be environmentally friendly, but you have already done the damage of your share. So why can't we do our share and then develop, and then we can worry about climate change, all these emissions later on. So that's one of the valid arguments. So for that thing to happen, the developed countries should be willing to transfer the knowledge. So this is a political stuff that happens. So if they transfer the knowledge, things will go all fine and well. But the transfer of knowledge should be happening. But if it doesn't happen, we don't have other choice, because we need to develop ourselves. We need to provide electricity to everyone. We need to provide water, drinking water, because these are the basic necessities in this current world, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. And hope that was clear for the second question. uh, right. I will, if it's okay, then I can go for the first one.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so the first question you are asking is other alternatives for water, or the dams, especially in terms of electricity. uh, so other alternatives, what? So if you think in terms of non-renewable source of energy or renewable source of energy, water, because there is this monsoon that happens, the rains that happen. So the water is relatively, you can think it of it as a renewable resource, but with climate change, things will surely change. But with that aspect, it's a recurring resource, so you can obviously use it. But the other options that you have, whether it could be solar or wind energy, each one, every of them has their own impacts. If you think of solar energy, because some of the solar plants, it's not like local, they are like huge areas that are covered in all these solar panels. So much of these solar panels are put up in deserts or scrublands, which are termed as wastelands by the government. So because they are economically wastelands, not doesn't mean they are ecologically wastelands. So they look in terms of economics, they are termed wastelands. So they cover these huge areas with just solar panels. So that will change the place habitat and damage the ecology of that area. If you think in terms of like, okay, ठीक then solar panel might not be an option. Let's go for uh, wind wind farms. Wind farms, they kill a lot of birds that are migratory, especially in the states of Gujarat, or these electricity lines that supply from the source to the uh, consumers. These electricity lines kill a lot of bird species, especially the endangered species like great Indian bustard that has few population in Rajasthan. So most of these, so there is no easy alternative to it. But if we just, since we're just talking about these alternatives, there's this interesting thing that has happened, especially with Sardar Sarovar Dam, is the Narmada Canal, or the canal that originates from the dam. So there has been proposal. I'm not sure how far this has went off. It was to cover the canal, at least the area, with solar panels, so that you have, reduce the evapotranspiration from the canal water, and simultaneously not have extra area lost for generating solar energy. So there's this trade-off that has to happen, because at least with the current advancements in technology, we don't have other alternatives to get it at that scale, because the other alternative that can think of is nuclear, which brings its own set of challenges.
Right. So can we
Yeah,
say that uh, I mean the alternatives depend on are probably site specific or region specific, because
yeah,
where to give importance to what will depend on the region. Like you
yes,
said, in
yes,
Rajasthan, that bird is like very less in number. It's a migratory
yeah,
bird. So in some other part, there's some other thing. So I think we can say that at the root of this thing is the consumption. So at the consumption level, if we are able to reduce it, we'll be able to
yeah,
somehow not get into developing more and more of these infrastructure and sustain ourselves within the ones that are existing.
yeah, 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 that completely agree, and thanks for pointing those things out.
Yeah, thank you.
uh, yeah, and I think this also has to start from ourselves, because if you're just turning on the lights, leaving it on, so basically you're consuming energy there, if if not necessarily, if you don't know, if you have no use of it, but still it's on, because the electricity is generated because based on the demand. So if you don't use it when you are not, when you don't need it, so you're basically reducing the demand for it. So the amount of power that is needed obviously goes down. So is the scale of the electricity generation, at least the amount of electricity that has to be generated from a dam goes down. So yeah, so it has to start from us to think sustainably, to say it a bit again, and act. It's not just not saying for others. So we also has a role in it, to for the sustainability, even if we stay far from the place where all these things are happening.
Sir, I add one more point to this?
Yeah, sure, sure, sure.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I mean the it starts from us, that every individual takes up this responsibility of consuming only the required amount. Also, if we start actually, if we make it very strict bylaws for the buildings to have design buildings to be designed in a way that they provide a lot of thermal comfort to the users. Eventually, in long run, the consumption of the building, that is why these griha and lead and all these ratings have come. But they're like, whoever
Yes.
aspires to get those ratings, there should be some laws which are very strict at the implication level, where they see that the whatever new construction is coming, it's coming in a way where thermal comfort is provided to the people and the building is climate responsive. So we'll be able to, the people themselves will respond in that way, maybe that they
Yeah.
would, natural ventilation is there, so during the day they won't use lights and fans as much, maybe only fans in the night, oh, sorry, in the day, and lights in the night, like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's obviously right. And then you also pointed out the the implementation, because that's where I think we have some of the laws in those aspects, but implementation is, I think, I personally feel, is where we are lacking. Even if we put some pretty decent laws, it's like okay, if this law is there, you can cut all of your emissions, or have greater quality of life still, but still reduce your impact. But it boils down to the how strict it is, because as Indians we know how we are comfortable to go around, try to break the law, or we have been doing, and everyone knows how to do that. So unless until we start following the rules that we ourselves have made, I don't think we can achieve that. But when only we start following them, we'll be able to achieve even whatever the strict, or you know the good the rule looks. So that is, I think, is really important for us to have a change in mindset. And other thing is, uh, it might not be really possible, for everyone to achieve that thing. Let's say, for example, certification you are talking about, getting some sort of certification. Because if there is a poor person or person who has limited amount of budget, who is from a marginalized background, if the person wants to build a house, he just wants to build it in some way so that he has uh, a roof on top of his head. He's not worried about other things because he has no other place to stay, so he will not be aware of those laws. That the first thing. Second thing, he the in the end, what matters to him is just the roof on the head. It's not whether there is it's following some rules that has been set for a lot of other people or not. So there's this discrepancy where it is applicable and where it is necessary, and where it can be little relaxed. There is these things that happens, especially at least in the Indian context, I think. Because if you see in the rural context, there is no much worry, because the houses are built like that so that you don't you have thermal comfort all around the year. But if you come to the urban areas, this is this problem that comes up. So if you go and try to put those rules that when you have a home, you have to have this sort of ventilation to rural people, it makes no sense to them, right?
Right, sir.
So
So,
yeah.
in that sense, one more thing I would like to add, that yes, true, that somebody who has a very limited budget would just only like to have something over the head. But maybe I think after a point, if we give some kind of subsidy in terms of maybe FAR, like a barter, so in
Yes.
that way, maybe to some extent we would be able to achieve that kind, that the builder gets to build another floor, sell at
Yeah.
least 6 7 more flats. So the builder would try to implement the sustainable aspects in his design, and get that kind of
Yeah.
certificate, and maybe like that some amount.
Yeah. So but the thing is, like, it has to be implemented. Whatever has if the implementation is good enough, what I think, the laws we have currently, they themselves can do a lot of pushing to the goal. Some of those SDGs we have, because, so as I was pointing out earlier, some of those schemes that has been running have been running for ages, because we have those things that are there, that are necessary. But the implementation is where I think it's not strong enough, or because of multiple stakeholders being involved. you know if those things are addressed, I think we can you know we can progress little ahead than what at the state we are currently. Yeah. These are some of my views. Okay. And yeah, that's it. If anybody would like to add something, or want me to talk about something, please. uh, does any variation or mutation occurs in aquatic species as by establishment of dam? uh, I'm really not sure about it, but if you try to break it down, let's say, so the dam changes the species that are present in an area. But what happens to a species, variation might happen in few cases. Let's say, for example, if you take this Narmada river itself, it used to be just a continuous flowing river that is unobstructed. Okay, the water is currently flowing everywhere, but because of this dam, the backwater, or the water we have formed in a major lake, right? So instead of flowing water, we have stagnant water. So the species that are that need higher amount of oxygen, or the species that are comfortable or known to be found in flowing waters, they will be found only in flowing waters. But since there is a lake, they will go out of that place, or they might just go locally extinct. And then species that are really comfortable with the places, like waters, or the lakes or stagnant water bodies, they will proliferate in the ponds, or the lake creates. But I'm really not sure about mutations happening, but I don't think that might happen. But there might be variation, in how the species responds. If there are some species, they can they can change their habits of how they go around. Or let's say, since they can adapt, they can stay only, they can be found only in the higher reaches of the lake where the water is little bit flowing, or on the periphery where the water is not deep, if they don't like deeper waters. So they can look out for places where they are comfortable, or where they are really, where they need, and or else they might, totally avoid that place, or go locally extinct. But because since this most of these dams have been happening in, or been constructed for, let's say, are 50 to 100 years old, let's go with this value, some random value. These values are relatively, relatively small in terms of, this most of these mutations to majority of these mutations to occur and establish in the populations. One or two species might be, randomly mutated, but they might not have any additional advantage of having those mutations so that they can stay in dams. I mean, that's what I think. Is it what that you're trying to ask? Okay, right. So there have been a lot of studies that have happened, and then, this habitat change itself brings in invasive species. So the lakes, the flowing water, it may not support invasive species. Since there is a lake or stagnant water there, large stagnant water body, there are some species that, that love that area and then are invasive, are non-native, or from different place. They can come proliferate and damage that region. So yeah, there are a lot of other thing, ecological impacts that really happens because of dams, right? And then especially other thing that you can think of is not only invasive species in the water, invasive species on the, in the habitat across, especially because most of these rivers where they flow, or where the dam is constructed, are in the hilly regions where there are sufficient hills, where you can raise the dam much more higher, and the water can level can also be risen across. So you had to construct roads for you to reach to the dam area, to build the dam, and then after that it has to be regularly maintained. So there's a lot of movement that happens, so that brings in invasives and some lot of other ecological impacts along with it. So yeah, there are a lot of other ecological impacts which I had not touched upon earlier. So, and it eventually changes the species communities what are referred to on the upstream, downstream also, because those flowing species might not be seen on the downstream because the water is not flowing, we're just obstructing it there. Okay. Yeah. So if anybody would like to ask anything, just let me know, because I can wait for another 4 5 minutes. If no one has any questions, I can end the session here. If anybody has any questions, we can discuss further. Okay. Uh, so doesn't seem like any of you have any more questions or any things that you would like to discuss. If you have any other ideas, if you think, if you have thought of something else, if something pops up later, yeah, someone raise their hand. Please go ahead. I think Sanjita, is there something that you would like to ask? Okay. So if you if you had something in your mind later on, you can ask me at the start of the session next week also. So yeah, I would be happy to discuss and share my views and hear your views on some of those topics. or the ones that are covered that I had tried discussing today. Okay, okay. In that case, I think I'll stop here. And for those of you who are interested, want to get back to this lecture or this presentation, this will be uploaded on YouTube at this ID. If you want to refer it, you can refer it from there. What all we had discussed upon, and the presentation will be shared on the, I think, the web on the NPTEL web page itself. So yeah, so yeah, if no one has any questions, so we can break here. Thank you, thank you for joining, and thank you for those discussions. I hope to have these discussions, many more such discussions. Okay, in the case, we'll stop here. Thank you.